What up, what up? You're listening to the bonus episode of Nate's Notes. I am one of your co-hosts, Nate Jones, and with me, as always, is my other co-host, Griffin Schuler. How are you doing this fine evening, Griffin?
You know what? You ask me this every podcast, and I just am never prepared to answer it the correct way, I feel like. But I'm doing okay.
That's great. It's not terrible. It's okay. It's, right down the middle. But we're joined by a third host today, and that is James. How are you doing today, James?
I'm doing good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here. So if those of you remember, several weeks ago, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we put out a poll asking what would you like to hear on this podcast, and the options were golf and the Olympics. We already covered the Olympics, so if you've not listened to our Olympics episode, I'm going to do the same thing I did last week. You can pause right here. We'll be back for you at the 58-second mark, and then go listen to the Olympics episode, come back, and it'll kind of give you a good idea of what this podcast is going to sound like, what we're going to talk about. But instead of the Olympics, we're going to talk about golf. And James is our resident golf expert here on Nate's Notes, and so we're happy we're able to get him to join us to talk about golf. So we're just going to kind of open the conversation here, James. Why golf? Why do you love golf? Maybe why you hate golf? Just kind of tell your story about golf, and then we'll continue from there.
Oh, man. So I like that you said, why do I hate golf, too? Because it's definitely one of those sports. It changes even within the round, if I love it or hate it. But I think it all starts way back to my dad. You know, my dad's a professional golfer. He's a PGA lifetime member.
Wow.
So right from the start, right when I was born, I kind of was just introduced to the game. I learned to love it. And then, like I said earlier, I just learned to hate it. So it was kind of the beginning of a relationship between me and my dad. Watching him play, even going on tournaments and stuff, he would let me walk along the course with him. So I got to see golf, at its best with my dad and the guys he played with. And then all the way through high school, I just fell in love with the game and continued it. Unfortunately, couldn't continue it on to college, but I took a little bit of a hiatus, and I'm back. I fell in love with the game once again.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what does a PGA lifetime member entail? What does it mean? You mentioned that your dad was that.
Yeah, so PGA lifetime member, a lot of guys, when they enter into the PGA, when they get their pro card, you have to renew your card. Unfortunately, I don't know the span of once you renew it.
Yeah.
But my dad has continually renewed it to where he's had it for 25 years, and I'm pretty sure once you do it after that 25 years, you're just a lifetime member.
Okay. That's really interesting.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I wish other memberships worked like that. If you just had it for a certain period of time, you just didn't ever have to pay for it again.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
But so you said you took a hiatus. What did you learn in that time from, the break you took from playing golf in high school to playing again today?
Oh, that's a good question. I've actually been wanting to talk about this part. So, I was originally introduced to the game. I was young. My main goal and kind of what I was known for is just hitting the ball as hard and as far as it could possibly go. So, all the way through high school, I was known as the kid that would take out his driver and absolutely rip it. I could outdrive anyone by, 40, 50 yards.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, and so did everyone else, everyone thought that made me a really good golfer.
Yeah.
That is not the case. My short game absolutely sucked. Once I got around the green and my putting, it was horrible. So the hiatus came from just picture doing something for 18, 19 years, just every day trying to get better at it. And, I did improve, but not in the ways that I wanted to. And I was just burnt out. So I came over to college. I got no scholarship offers. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to put the game down for a while. And just recently, I went out actually with mine and Griffin's boss. His name's Pete. went out to play golf with Pete. I had some rental clubs, and I actually played one of the best rounds I've ever played. And I think in that hiatus, I've matured and I've learned, and my dad always used to tell me this, you have to think your way around the golf course. Don't just get up on the tee and blast it. You gotta, it's kind of like pool. You think about your leave in pool.
Yeah.
And that finally clicked for me at 25 years old. I'm like, wow, okay, now golf kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
I just have to figure out my shots once again, and I feel like I'll be a pretty solid player. But all my dad's advice finally made sense.
Hey, that's great.
I think a lot of people can relate to wanting to just drive the ball as far as they can when they first like pick up golf. I definitely can.
Oh yeah.
And I know for my friends that played golf, we would always kind of yell John Daly as we were like hitting it as hard as we could off the tee.
Oh yeah.
Just because he's like one of those few golfers that I actually know where he's just iconic for his power, I feel like.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, he can blast it, absolutely. And there's a few guys on tour that, can absolutely blast it, but the key with them is they follow it up with an approach shot that's better than anyone else. So that all the parts of their game come together and flow really well.
Yeah, that's great. So how long have you been out of your hiatus from golf?
6 years.
Okay.
I graduated high school when I was 19, so it's been 6 years, and I have, just went to the range every once in a while, but just going to the range, when you're not under that pressure of like you have a competition the next day, it's a lot more fun. I wasn't really focused on practicing. I was just hitting the balls, But now I'm back, and obviously there's not much competition now. I'm out of high school. I've thought about joining a men's league, but I really need to get my game together. Like I said, with that, me maturing in this hiatus and then trying to bring back some of the talents that I had in the past, I think I'll have a pretty solid game.
Yeah. So during this comeback from this hiatus, have you ever thought about putting down the game of golf again, or has it been all positive so far?
It has 100% been positive from like the time that I got these new clubs to now. And honestly, it's only been 3-4 months, but I've been playing pretty frequently, and I don't think there's any desire to put the game down. I just have that spark that I want to learn again. And now, since I'm more mature and I understand my dad's advice, now's the time. I'm just going to ask him every single question I had in high school, I have now, and then try and incorporate that into my game.
Yeah, that's a great resource now.
Yeah. There's definitely something that just like clicks for a lot of people when they mature for any sport that they play, where like their training just becomes a lot more focused. And I think that's kind of what you're describing here is like your IQ for golf has become increased by like tenfold, and you kind of understand it from a higher level, it seems like.
Oh, definitely.
I'm going to go back to kind of what you mentioned, that your first round back after your hiatus was like one of your best rounds ever. That's kind of an interesting like concept to me, but I could kind of relate to that for when I would take pretty decent breaks from playing soccer. I'd come back and I'd feel like just like way fresher and like way better in my mind as well as my legs. So is that kind of what you experienced? Is like you just had an open mind to how to approach that particular game?
Oh yeah, and I stepped up on the tee and I kind of got a rush of memories from back in high school. But I told myself I'm not the same player that I was. I'm trying to develop kind of a new player that incorporates that maturity into his game. But I definitely had a fresh, open mind. But physically, I always say golf is like kind of riding a bike, and a lot of people disagree with me. But my dad being a pro and a certified teaching professional, he really ingrained a really good golf swing into me. And for some reason, I stepped up on the tee and I still had it. But as far as like shot after shot, my fresh open mind really incorporated everything really well into my game that day.
Nice. So your dad's a golf pro. Are you able to give any kind of insight to what that journey or what that lifestyle entails?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a long story, and I don't want to absolutely butcher my dad's story, but from what he's told me, it sounds like a pretty good lifestyle back in the day. So I can kind of start from the beginning if you guys want, and just kind of go into present day.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so he was a pretty avid golfer from a young age. I don't think he had any, he didn't realize how good he was until he hit high school. And he ended up being a state champion in 1972 out of Rifle High School on the western slope of Colorado. And that was all the way back in the day when they didn't have the 1A through 5A classes like they do now. It was literally just everyone. So he made the cut to go to state, and then his senior year, he beat some kid that was really, really good from Cherry Creek. I mean, Rifle is a small school. It was even smaller then, and he ended up coming out on top with that. Then he went to Western, which is in Gunnison.
Yep.
He was a 2-time All-American there.
Okay.
And then I think he turned pro right out of college, and he did something that I think everyone wants to do. He packed up his car and went out to California and became the assistant pro at El Dorado Country Club, which is like one of the most renowned country clubs in the U.S.
Nice.
So he was the assistant pro there for about 4 years. Then he went to Rifle, which originally was where he was from. Rifle was the head pro there for 26 years and the general manager. And he's been recently kind of bouncing around. So he went to Rifle. Then when I was in third grade, we moved to Cedar Edge. He was the general manager and director of golf at the Cedar Edge Golf Course. And then I'm sure you guys have seen these around town. There's one here in the spring. He opened up a Golf Tech in Grand Junction. That was for about 3 years. So Golf Tech, like I said, he's a certified teaching professional. So Golf Tech is just like indoor high-tech lesson.
Okay.
That was when I really stepped my game up because I had the access to all those simulators and all that technology, which really helped my game.
Yeah, I bet.
Then he went down to New Mexico after that, head professional director of golf there. Then he went to the Raven at Three Peaks, which is a huge course in Silverthorne. And now he's at the Bridges in Montrose, which is really close to where I grew up, Cedar Edge. He's a head teaching pro there.
Okay.
So as far as lifestyle goes, yeah. I mean, he's been a club pro since I've been alive. But before I was born, he played on a lot of tours around the U.S. And it sounds like the greatest life because he used to tell me he would pack up his cherry red T-top Corvette and just drive from tournament to tournament.
Huh.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Pretty cool. I know. Yeah, nothing holding him back.
Yeah, that's really cool. Does he kind of miss that being on tour and all that, or do you think he's really happy with being a club pro and all those different positions he's had?
You know, it's funny that you asked that. So, as you guys probably know, the U.S. Senior Open was here in Colorado Springs this last year at the Broadmoor. So I got tickets for me and my dad to go. And just from watching him watch those players at the Senior Open, I can really tell that he misses it. And he, he's my dad, so I might be a little bit biased, but I think he could still go out there and kick some ass. So, it's always funny. I outdrive him on the tee by, 30 yards.
Okay.
But his approach shot and his putting, unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's one of the best I've ever seen. So I think he misses it. And, there's nothing wrong with being a club pro.
Yeah.
But I think every golfer's main goal is to get on one of those tours and eventually get to the PGA Tour.
Yeah, no, 100%.
The lucrative PGA Tour.
Oh yeah.
I imagine you and your dad have played a couple rounds against each other or with each other.
Oh yeah.
When's the last time you've been able to play with your dad?
Ooh, it's honestly been a while. I want to say probably about 4 or 5 years is the last time we actually went out and played, when he was down in New Mexico. So for the summers, I used to just go down to New Mexico, and, you know, I would have the access to play golf all day, every day for free. So when he was available, we would go out and play.
That's
nice.
pretty cool.
I'm thinking about how many courses your dad has played, and I'm sure you've gotten to experience a lot of courses yourself because of his connections. Do you, or I guess, let us know what your personal favorite course is, and if there is a course out there that you haven't experienced yet, but it's like the top of your list. And then if you know about any of your dad's experiences from the courses he's played, if he's got a favorite course, and if he's got a course he hasn't played that he'd love to.
As far as my dad's favorite courses, I'm actually not sure, but I know he has been absolutely everywhere. He's told me about the Arizona heat, the humidity in Florida, even the alligators in Florida. I mean, those mini tours, he took them all over the U.S. As far as me, my favorite course, it's really player preference. So like I said in the beginning, I still enjoy hitting the ball, you know, getting up on the first tee and absolutely ripping it.
Yeah.
So the course my dad is at now, the Bridges, is a Jack Nicklaus designed course, and he absolutely made these fairways almost as wide as, you know, I want to say 2 football fields.
Wow.
So you can get up on the first tee, and it doesn't matter if you hit it straight. You can get up there and just absolutely rip it.
Wow.
So that's one of my favorite courses because there's no repercussions to getting up there and giving it your all.
Wow, that's incredible.
And then since the day I was born, my number one golf course I want to play is Pebble Beach in California. That's by far my favorite course. And hopefully one day I can get out there and play a few rounds.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous course.
Yeah.
Have you played on that course, Nate?
I have not. I've driven by it, and I have golf balls from it, but I have not played it. I went to the gift shop.
I'm pretty sure... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just went into the gift shop and bought golf balls, so that's my experience at Pebble Beach.
That's awesome. That's more than me.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it wasn't... What major was just played there? Was it the
U.S. Open.
I can't remember.
Was
it the U.S. Open?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yep.
No, it looked like it was playing really well. It's absolutely gorgeous. So
yeah,
that's my number one course. That'll probably always be on the top of my list.
That's great.
Do you have any more questions, Nate?
So James, we talked a little bit about the PGA Tour, and we just mentioned the U.S. Open here. Do you follow the PGA Tour at all? Does it interest you? Or like myself, I'll watch it if it's on, but I'm really only invested if Tiger Woods is playing well. What kind of professional golf fan are you?
You know, I wouldn't say I'm totally invested in it.
Okay.
I watch it when it's on, and of course Tiger Woods is one of those athletes that's kind of put golf on the map.
Yep.
So of course I'll watch when he's on. But as far as like statistics and FedEx Cup points and all that stuff, I don't pay attention to any of that. But okay. I do have a few favorites. I think Ricky Fowler kind of falls into everyone's favorite.
Yep.
John Rahm, because he went to ASU and was coached by Phil Mickelson's brother.
Okay.
That's pretty cool. And then I have a autographed hat from Phil Mickelson.
Oh,
he's my favorite. I'm a lefty, so the fact that he's a lefty, I just like him a little bit more than the others.
Okay.
Is that a thing where just lefties just all connect with each other? They just have telepathy and a brotherhood?
Honestly, yeah, dude, it is true. And a fun fact, so I was actually born doing everything right-handed, but my dad wanted me to become a professional golfer, so he taught me how to swing lefty because there's less lefties on tour.
Wow. Huh.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
That's like so it can be a taught skill.
Yeah. I know, yeah. I mean, from the moment I picked up a club, he made sure I did everything lefty. So now I write and throw with my right hand, and I play golf and swing a baseball bat left-handed.
Well, that's really similar. So I'm about to say you're just like John Elway, because that's what John Elway's dad, he did a very similar thing. He taught John how to bat left-handed, so it's quicker for him to get to first base, because John was a two-star athlete. So that's incredible. So you're just like John Elway.
Yeah. Hopefully one day.
So since I personally know you, I know you've played baseball as well growing up. And I've also found personally to transition from a baseball swing to a golf swing back to a baseball swing is pretty difficult. Have you had the same experience as that, where it's a pretty hard transition from one to the other, or have you got both mastered and you can just switch from either one with no problem?
You know, it's tough to say. I don't want to say I've mastered it, but my dad being a teaching pro, he's really taught me every single aspect of both swings. And I always catch a little bit of a golf swing in my baseball swing, especially if he throws a low pitch. That's when if he throws a low pitch, I guarantee you I'm cranking that thing. If it's set up on a tee, it's gone. But as far as baseball into golf, I don't think I really have any trace of a baseball swing in my golf swing. I know a lot of people load with that front foot, and that's my biggest pet peeve. Yeah, so every baseball player that I've took golfing, the first thing they do is they pick their foot up on their backswing. And that's my biggest pet peeve. So I always tell them to leave that front foot on the ground. Matthew Wolf, I'm sure you guys have seen. Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, when you pick up your front foot like that for a golf swing, it just becomes impossible for you to connect the club to the ball at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super hard, and it like moves your eyes even. But I'm sure you guys have seen the crazy golf swing of Matthew Wolf. He's from, I think, Oklahoma State. He just turned professional. He is putting everything I say, just putting it out, because his golf swing, if you haven't seen it, go look it up. His front foot leaves the ground, and his backswing and follow through are the ugliest thing I've ever seen. But somehow he makes it work.
Hey, if it's not broke,
I'm going to look that up right now.
I've heard his name, but I don't think I've ever watched his swing necessarily, so that's interesting.
It honestly goes against everything my dad and I'm sure other pros have taught.
Huh.
But I watched a segment on his coach breaking down his swing.
Okay.
And by picking up his front foot, he's developing so much more power than other golfers.
Huh.
And honestly, if you know kind of the ins and outs of the golf swing, it makes sense. But it's hard to watch.
Yeah, it does sound like it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that is a funky swing.
Yeah.
Getting a live reaction from Griffin right now.
Let's watch this in slow motion here. While I'm watching this, you mentioned your dad obviously is a golf pro and is a teaching pro, and so you've probably heard all of the tricks and tips. Are there any basic tricks and tips you'd be able to tell the listeners to improve their golf game without physically showing them or how to change their swing?
That's a good question. That's tough. I'm sure my dad could do it just without actually seeing it. But with me, the only tips I can give you are things that he has constantly told me. Your feet and your shoulders need to be lined up towards your target. If one of them is off, your swing is going to be messed up. Biggest thing for me growing up was my grip of the golf club. Like I said, I was kind of a multi-sport athlete. So when I think from the time I picked up a golf club all the way to 16 years old, I gripped the golf club like a baseball bat. which is not good because you want your hands to be one solid piece. So most golfers either overlap or interlock their pinky and index finger. But I didn't do that. And my dad said that's kind of why I was struggling getting the ball straight. So when I was 16, I think what was that, my freshman, sophomore year of high school, I finally interlocked my fingers, and that made everything so much easier. Third tip he's always told me is you should hold the golf club like you're holding a baby bird, which is hard to believe.
What does that even mean? How do you hold a baby bird?
Very, very lightly. You don't want to hurt the baby bird. So you think if you're going to swing it, if you're holding it like that, the club is going to come out of your hands. But naturally, before you're about to hit something, you're going to grip that thing super tight. So it's just kind of to relax your arms and shoulders before you start your backswing.
I'm going to have to try that one with an open field in front of me because I just feel like I'm going to just let it fly. The club that
I know a few people
ball.
that have let. Yep, I've seen some clubs fly before after telling someone that.
I've definitely always had the mindset of grip it and rip it, so that's completely counteracts that statement. So I'm gonna have to try that out. I'll hold the baby bird my next golf game.
Yes, just keep telling yourself that. Hold the baby bird. And then, I mean, golf, it's funny. I can give someone all these physical tips, but really, it all lies within, it's a mental game, I think, just as much as it is physical. If you hit a bad shot, my dad always told me don't follow trouble with trouble, which now, like I said, finally makes sense. You just need to go into it with, and not necessarily you're going to save a bad shot, but just don't follow trouble with trouble. And I think that quote right there is going to help a lot of golfers because a lot of people, if you hit it near the water and you're trying to get out of a hazard, a lot of golfers are going to try and go straight for the green, but that's not always what you need. You just need to get it out of there so you have a clean shot at the green. So I think that's probably one of the most important things my dad told me.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's really good.
Yeah.
I'm expecting my score to drop by at least 10 strokes the next time I go out with these tips. And then we'll heavily endorse, like, James' top 4 tips.
I like
top
that.
3 or top 4.
I think I gave 3 physical and then 4 was overall mental.
Okay, yeah, that's top 4. Beautiful.
All right, well, that's pretty much all I've got.
Yeah, James, is there anything you'd like to talk about the game of golf? Any questions you have for us? This is feeling like a formal interview for a job, but do you have any questions for us about golf or anything else you'd like to bring up about golf before we end this episode?
Yeah, I have a couple questions for you guys. Like, all right. How often have you guys played golf? Kind of in what settings have you played golf? And why do you love it or hate it?
Do you want to go first, Nate?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I started golfing kind of at a young age, like 3, 4, and I just never fell in love with it or got good at it. It's kind of one of those two things. I loved watching it more than playing it, and the reason I would always go with my dad, for the most part, was to get a Gatorade at the pro shop before we started the round of golf. I liked it, but I was kind of like the grip and rip it, except I was terrible at driving. And so I just always struggled with it. So we played kind of frequently when I was growing up until about probably around 5th grade, 6th grade. That's when I got really into other sports, and so golf kind of fell off. And I'm also from a desert in Southern California that did not have great golf courses. And most of the time when we wanted to go golf, it was also 105 degrees outside. So that makes it a lot less enjoyable, and so we kind of just went less frequently. But that's when we kind of picked up going to these PGA tournaments. And so I think I've been to Tiger Woods tournament, the Tiger Challenge. It changed like 40 different names. It depended on who the sponsor was. But he had it every year in Thousand Oaks for a while, and I fell in love with Tiger Woods right away. I bought the little Tiger cover for my driver, so I felt like Tiger Woods, even though it's terrible. I had that for sure. And so we'd go to that almost every year when he had it in California, and that was really cool. We even got to go to Torrey Pines once to watch him play there as well. So that's where I kind of like kept my love for golf. And then I love going to the driving range and other things like that. But I don't think I've played an actual like game of golf in 4 or 5 years. So I don't have my own pair of clubs right now. I am not very good, but I'm always interested. Like, you know what? This is the year where I'll pick up golf. And it never is the year, so maybe I'll find it someday.
Yeah, let's go out and play soon, all three of us.
Yeah, that sounds.
Well, definitely that'd be a good follow up to this episode.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
Yeah, for my experience with golf, when my parents moved us out from California to North Texas in Frisco, we actually moved into a house that backed up onto a golf course, and we lived right on the green of the first hole. And so, I mean, we could see the clubhouse basically from our backyard, and watch people golf and stuff like that. And you know, I was definitely at an age where I didn't really get to appreciate that circumstance, because I could have easily taken advantage of walking out onto the green and just practice chipping and putting. But the first time I got to actually playing golf was my parents kind of enrolled me into some lessons at this particular golf course.
Okay.
And so that's when I started to kind of learn how to swing a club and each of the different clubs. But one thing that was really frustrating for me was I was so used to I not to be cocky, but I consider myself a pretty good athlete that was pretty good at adapting to anything that I tried. Yeah. So playing basketball, playing soccer, playing football, I was pretty much above average after a few weeks of playing at most of those things. Golf is something that I just always felt like I was below average at compared to other people I knew. Okay. I just could not seem to pick it up. That's how difficult of a game it is. Yeah. And so I just never stuck with it. I was definitely the type of golfer where when I'd go out with buddies or my dad and his friends, I'd always have one or two parts of my game that were really good, and then the other one or two parts of my game that were just terrible. And so I was never a consistent golfer. Okay. What I mean by that is, you know, one time I'd go out and my driving for that day would be super good, but then my chipping and putting would be terrible, or vice versa. And so I never got to put the whole game together. Yeah. And just over time, kind of grew out of it. I'd rather just focus on other sports that I kind of had a knack for. And so just took some time away from it. Really, I kind of started to pick back up once I moved to Colorado for college, just because some of my other friends wanted to go out and do it. And so I've definitely become more of a beer golfer. I don't know if that's if there's a term for that. That is a thing. But, you know, drinking beers and maybe even a couple margaritas before going golfing with some friends is kind of the golfer I've become. Okay. But I don't think I've gone in the last year, so I'd love to get back out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, all three of us should go. But that's definitely the most common type of golfer that I see, is definitely the beer golfer. Goes out on Saturday morning and plays. There's nothing wrong with that. I love doing that.
The last time I went out, I might have had a few too many, and you know, it felt like the best round of my life, and so that's the liquid confidence right there.
Oh yeah, that's what you need, that confidence when you get up on the tee.
I might not have actually been having the round of my life, but you know, in my head, it seemed like it.
It probably was.
That's funny.
All right, James, do you have any other questions for us before we wrap it up?
Honestly, no. I think that's pretty much all I have to say.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It was great having you here talking about golf. Obviously, Griffin and I are not experts, so it's always great to have an expert come in and talk about this stuff with all of you. So you have your own podcast, is that right, James?
I do. You guys have inspired me to start my own. So it's called Net Worth.
Okay.
I'm just going to talk about my journey, and I want to have other people's journeys on. So I want to formally invite both of you on to talk about sports and kind of how they've impacted your lives, and I can talk about how they've impacted mine. So
yeah,
everyone keep a lookout for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, just have your agent reach out to my agent, and we'll make it happen.
Okay, deal.
Where can people find this podcast, and do you have any social media handles that they can follow as well?
Yeah, so right now I do have an Instagram account. It's called Net Worth Co. So Net Worth Co.
Okay.
Follow us on Instagram. And then currently we are on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and then Apple Podcasts should be soon. They take absolutely forever.
Yes, they
do.
So
I think we should be on that in about a week.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Thanks so much for telling our listeners about it. For our listeners, you can find us on social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just look up Nate's Notes. The handle for most of those accounts are Notes Nate, so make sure to give us a follow there. We post some exclusive content and links to all our shows. If you are like, I don't know where to start with all of the shows, I don't know what's the first one, I'm kind of confused. If you look us up on Instagram, we're at Notes Nates, and there's those little highlight buttons on all the profiles. If you click the episodes one, it has every single episode linked to Spotify. So if you want to check it out from the beginning and go in order, that's where you can start to do that. I want to thank James again for coming on. It was great for him to talk about golf. And we will be back next Tuesday with a normal show. Thank you so much for listening.